Hey guys, let me talk to you for a minute about something that most churches don't want to touch, and that's the examination of Matthew 18. Now, this passage is supposed to heal relationships, but what is meant for healing ends up being the passage that seems to shut people up. And I've watched it happen enough times now, including in my own experience, to finally say this out loud. Matthew 18 is beautiful when it's used the way that Jesus intended, but when it's misused, it becomes one of the easiest tools for spiritual power to hide behind. Because Matthew 18 was written for something simple and specific. And what's that? Well, a personal offense between two believers, a private wound, a conflict between equals where reconciliation is possible. And we're going to look at the wording in the text because it's very specific. If someone sins against you, that's very clear. It was never meant to cover governance issues or leadership decisions, structural failures, or the behavior of people in spiritual authority. But what I'm seeing and what many of you may see is that in a lot of churches, mine included, Matthew 18 becomes the first thing they reach for whenever someone raises a legitimate concern. And it's not to help, it's not to guide, but interestingly, it's used to redirect, to shift the focus away from what happened, the governance issue, to how you dared to bring it up. So instead of leadership answering a question, the conversation becomes, did you follow Matthew 18? Did you go privately? You shouldn't be talking about this. And suddenly, the real issue disappears and the sin becomes the method and not the misconduct. And that's how Matthew 18 gets weaponized, not because the text is wrong, but because it's being used in situations it was in fact never meant for. Which leads to the bigger problem. When Matthew 18 is misused, the other passages that actually apply, like the ones Jesus and Paul gave for leadership behavior, they get quietly pushed off the table. If you've read Matthew 23, this is the chapter where Jesus calls out abusive religious leaders publicly, right in front of the people. And if you've read 1 Timothy 5, this passage commands elders who sin to be rebuked before all, so others learn from it. But those texts go silent. Nobody quotes those at the board meetings. Nobody brings those into reconciliation conversations. No one says, hey, this is a leadership matter and the Bible has specific instructions for this. Instead, the entire thing gets squeezed into Matthew 18 as if the only issue that ever matters is whether the concerned person spoke the right way. And when that happens, you know you're not dealing with reconciliation anymore. You're dealing with a system that has learned how to use Scripture as a shield. So if you've ever felt that shift where the Bible gets pulled out not to clarify truth, but to protect the people in charge, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's settle in for this because we're going to talk honestly about how Matthew 18 gets twisted, how Matthew 23 and 1 Timothy 5 gets ignored, and why so many sincere believers, such as yourself, end up feeling like the enemy the moment you ask a fair question. So let's get into it.